Hey everybody, it's your buddy's pal Anthony, and I want to talk with you all today about a little comic book called Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles: The Last Ronin. Damn it. Sorry, that was me slapping the hardcover down by accident. Take four already. Hey everybody, it's your buddy's pal Anthony, and I want to talk with you all today about a little graphic novel called Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles: The Last Ronin. Uh, it's 5 issues. It was started publishing actually in 2020, and they only just finished it in 2022. I thought I was behind this whole time. Turns out I wasn't so far behind. And spoiler for me, spoiler about me for all of you. This is actually This is actually the first Ninja Turtle comic I've ever read. But enough about me. Let's get into this book. Steve, roll that intro, please. All right, so like I said, it's Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles: The Last Ronin. It just finished publishing earlier in 2022, and I've just recently picked it up. First of all, I got a little bit of news. According to IDW's webpage, they are making a prequel to The Last Ronin, and it's going to be called Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles: The Last Ronin: The Lost Years. And that actually starts, I didn't see how many issues, but that will start publishing supposedly at the end of January of 2023. So as of right now, it's January 24th.
You're late.
A wizard is never late. He arrives precisely when he means to.
Liar! So a little less than a week to go to the end of the month. And but before the prequel series, let's get into the actual series. So, The Last Ronin, and spoilers from here on out. First of all, the book was actually written by co-creators of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and that's Kevin Eastman and Peter Laird. Also, it gives credit to the story to a man named Tom Waltz. And again, first comic of the Turtles I'm reading. It's only 5 issues. I blew through this in about a day. And all right, so right off the bat, first page of the book, you have a turtle all armored up, not like I'm used to seeing him at all. Heavy ninja gear, has a bunch of weapons, has a utility belt of sorts on him. It's one turtle talking to somebody off panel that you can't see. And you get the idea right away, since it is the last Ronin, it's not that far of a stretch. This turtle, who is nameless yet, is talking to the other dead turtles, which was cool that I thought they did. I think they tried to throw you because they actually gave it, they gave the word bubbles like a direction, like a source, instead of just being disembodied bubbles, kind of like Deadpool does. So that was interesting. I don't know if that was supposed to throw you off, or that's just what they decided to do. And we find this turtle, he's about to swim and break into Manhattan, which in the next page we find is completely walled off, and there is a giant samurai temple somewhere in lower Manhattan, I'd say. And so we're joining this turtle. He's breaking in, and you get the idea pretty quickly that this is the culmination of a long time, years and years, and of work. And he's out there. He's going to get. We find out later, the villain of the story is the grandson of the Shredder, and that's who this guy is out to get. This person is responsible for the death of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle family. This includes Splinter, 3 of the 4 turtles, and unfortunately, Casey Jones. They're not wasting any time with this issue. It's not him going in to do recon or anything like that. This turtle, this Ronin, he's out for revenge, he's out for blood, and again, like I say, this is the culmination of his years of prep work. You're not going through all the prep work. This is it. You find him at the start of his final mission to combat the man who's responsible for the death of his family and his loved ones. It's again very action packed. I feel like I need to go back and read some of the old stuff because they've mentioned things like Baxter Stockman, who I know from the cartoon, but I feel like obviously it's a much different interpretation of the comics. So, oh no, I have to go read more Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle comics. Anyway, so the Ronin's fighting through. He encounters Foot Clan soldiers who are, as we come to find out, in some cases are straight up robots. In other cases, they're cyborgs of a sort. And one thing that gets me is I knew from reading about the comics, the original run, very, very, very violent. I believe they had it black and white because there's a lot of bloodshed and things like that. This one, again, my first comic, the violence not shocks me, but I was just like, oh wow, this is an adult comic. The violence, it's very intense. Like the turtle is setting explosions. He attacks, and we find out he's some of the foot soldiers are cyborgs because he beats the holy hell out of them. He actually throws in one panel, looks like a coat rack through the heads of some. And as they're laying in another panel, he's looking down in the broken mask, and we see some skin and an eyeball. So he's shocked, but he's also not totally totally thrown. Like he just violated, Batman's no kill rule. He's okay with the idea that okay, it's a cyborg, some humanity in there, doesn't really care, not going to stop him. Again, he's on his mission, however long he's been training, and now's the time. So he gets pretty far in the first issue. If I didn't have the whole book in front of me, I could they could have done this as a one and done thing. He gets pretty far. He gets into the temple, which is a huge skyscraper in its own right. But unfortunately, he's not successful in his first attempt, which he thought was his one and only attempt. And a huge robot takes him out a window. He comes crashing down onto the street, however many feet below, and he's not doing good. This guy's bleeding out. They show blood pouring out of his mouth. He's crawling away. He goes into the sewer. Uh, a woman who we don't know yet is misdirects some of the Foot Clan guys to going after him, and then cut to the sewer. And this guy is, I don't know what it's called. He's ready to perform suicide as to give himself an honorable death and to atone for failing to avenge his family. However, again, all the massive blood loss, he can't do it. And then this woman who misdirected the Foot Clan finds him, is shocked to realize that he's a turtle, but also just shocked, not afraid. And we come to the end of the issue, and the turtle is receiving a blood transfusion. He's in a bed. He's all bandaged up. You see a woman bringing him food. That woman is very quickly revealed to be April O'Neil. And April tells us who the last Ronin is, and it's none other than Michelangelo. Definitely didn't see that one coming. When I first heard about this, I've known it's Michelangelo because I've heard all the spoilers, but to see it, obviously your first thought goes to Raphael, especially when it's like, oh, he's going to be on a murder vengeance mission, totally going to be Raphael. Nope, it's Mikey of all people. And that's the end of issue one. Issue two, they go into some exposition of what's happened. We do a flashback. There was some sort of a truce between the Foot Clan and the Turtles. I can't do justice to pronouncing the name of the family, so I won't even try. I'll just call them the Turtle Clan. There's a truce. You get the impression that the Shredder's daughter, the Shredder is dead. I'm assuming they never really explained, so I'm guessing he's just dead and his daughter's in charge. From the Turtles' point of view, she broke the truce. You find talking to her, they think that the Turtles kind of broke the truce. I'm willing to bet they never say it. I have to read it again, but they never explicitly say it. But I'm willing to bet that it's her son, Shredder's grandson, who orchestrated stuff because he wanted the water star because he wanted power. So anyway, the Turtles bust in on Casey and April O'Neil in the past in the flashback. Splinter's really banged up. You think he's going to die right away. All the other Turtles are coming to his aid. They're trying to save him. Of course, Raph is pissed off and he goes off to try to get an eye for an eye, pound of flesh, and you think he's going to get it. There's another huge fight between Raph and a whole bunch of foot soldiers. Blood's flying everywhere. He's killing people. Again, even in the past, this version of the Turtles, it's a very adult comic, especially because he thinks that Splinter's pretty much dead. He was very critically injured. He's going for it. He's killing his way. He's going to get to Shredder's daughter, who's in a previous panel was just saying how the truce is broken and they need to get satisfaction. Uh, Raph's kicking ass. He's also getting his ass kicked. He's got a whole ton of arrows and whatnot in his shell. He's bleeding pretty badly. Him and Shredder's daughter, they finally go at it. You think Raph is going to get the upper hand and take her out. He body checks them both into a body of water. They're going down, and unfortunately, doesn't work out for poor Raphael. He is the first turtle to die. Really didn't think he would die in the opening salvo like that, but yeah, she takes a blade, and poor Raphael. R.I.P. Now we're back to the present, our future. Mikey's getting all caught up from April, who's actually pretty critically injured. She's lost an arm and a leg, but she has a technological replacement, so she's okay. She's living in the old lair with the women who found Mikey, and we've come to find out that this woman is her daughter, hers and Casey Jones, who she's also named Casey because why wouldn't you want a reminder of your dead husband who was brutally murdered? And I'll explain that later. But yeah, okay. And naturally, there's a resistance, and April, of course, is at the front of it. Shredder's grandson is pissed about the failure to kill Mikey. He executes one of his own guys, appoints another one to take up to with the mission of finding the mutant and taking him out. He wants his head on a pike, which, as we see, is exactly where he puts the head of his last captain who failed to kill Michelangelo. So I know I've said it a bunch of times already. I'll try to make this the last time. Definitely an adult comic. A lot of blood, human skeleton getting picked apart by birds, not for kids. So now the story kind of jumps around. We get a little bit of backstory. Michelangelo gives a little bit of history about what he did while he was away from New York City. He stayed away because, as we find out in a different flashback, uh, there seems to be one big last battle, and he thinks that everybody's dead. A lot of people did die. However, April survived, so that's why he apologized to her for never coming back to find her. Uh, Casey Jones and Leonardo make a heroic last stand with a resistance that they have formed in the past of this book, and unfortunately, it's just not enough. Meanwhile, Donatello and Splinter, who didn't die from his injuries that we first saw, make their way to Japan because Shredder's grandson has called for a peace talk. So they're flying out to try to do this. Donatello and Splinter, they don't 100% trust it, but Splinter wants to give peace a chance, which unfortunately doesn't work out for them. At the same time that Leonardo and Casey are having their last stand, sure enough, once they get settled in Japan, Splinter and Donatello are ambushed. Again, great battles on both fronts. Splinter's badass. He wants to go for the leader. He's trying to literally cut the head off the snake in the form of Shredder's grandson. And this is where not reading the comics has me at a disadvantage, because in the past, you find out that Baxter Stockman has hacked into a robot, a sentient robot they have on their side, the Turtles, called Fugitoid. Sorry if I butchered that. And that's what leads to the fall of the New York City resistance and Casey and Leo. Meanwhile, over in Japan, Splinter and Donatello are having what they think is a peace summit. They don't really buy it. And sure enough, they get ambushed. Ton of foot. Again, very brutal. Splinter tells Donatello no mercy. Very Cobra Kai, which is a show I've been blowing through, by the way. And again, great fight scenes, very graphic. Everybody's taking a ton of damage. Splinter is just decapitating people with his sword. And of course, it's the last Ronin. Sadly, doesn't work out. But everybody goes out a hero's death. So at least that's one thing. That's, you like to see your characters. You hate to see them go out, but at least you don't want them to die in some lame way or off panel, and you just have their hand come into the frame. Again, back to Michelangelo. He believes that everybody in New York City that he cared about was dead. So he hops on a plane, goes to Japan to try to warn Donnie and Splinter in time. He gets there after their final battle has already taken place. And rather than staying with the rest of the Turtle Clan that's in Japan, who offered for him to stay with them, he declines. He goes off to walk in the mountains, which in a different part of the book, he reflects he almost died because he's cold-blooded and can't take the cold. Uh, so he's not sure how he survived. This kind of flashes. I'm going to jump around now, so excuse me. So now, kind of flashing back to the present, April, who I'm not sure again because I've never read the book. She seems like a scientist in this. I don't know if she was a news reporter in the comics or if that was just something they changed for the TV show because they couldn't handle the idea of a female scientist in the '80s. Who knows? But yeah, Mikey, the whole time up to this point in the book, when he got blown out the window of the temple and hits the ground, even he says, "There's no way I should have really survived this." Uh, he's drawn a lot bigger and meaner, and like part of that could just be, yeah, okay, he's not a teenage turtle anymore. But even April is just like, "Yeah, you survived that fall. You should have splattered." And then, "Yeah, you survived the cold. That shouldn't have worked either." So she's taken some tests. She's hypothesizing that his mutation was continuing as he grew up. So that's why he was able to take more punishment like that. That's also why he's recovering like that, because he was pretty much dead. He would have died of blood loss. She stopped the blood loss, and then his body took over to heal with a little bit of help from her. And you eventually find out the real reason she's so curious about this, even though she's never told her, is she has her suspicions that her daughter has been affected by the mutagen because her and Casey were around the turtles so much. It's kind of like if you ever read, there's a Spider-Man book. It's another miniseries called Spider-Man Reign, and they basically say that Spider-Man killed Mary Jane because she developed a form of cancer, and eventually they say, I don't want to get too graphic, but Peter Parker is an old man and he's lamenting his life and how he killed his wife and everything, and he says how being around him was poison because he was bitten by a radioactive spider, so his blood was irradiated, his tears were irradiated, all of his bodily fluids were irradiated. So they were married, they stayed married, they did what married people do, and she got cancer from it. So they don't say that April or Casey did anything like that with the turtles. They make it seem like it's just enough to have been around them, affected them, and then affected their baby uh, while April was pregnant. Which, by the way, she didn't realize she was pregnant when the last battle in New York was happening. So neither did Michelangelo. No, nobody knew. She wakes up from a coma, missing an arm and a leg, but pregnant. So yeah, you eventually come to find out that sure enough, her daughter is enhanced because of the mutagen. She's stronger and faster. Mikey ends up taking the role of sensei to her, a little bit begrudgingly, and Mikey also, seemingly against what he would rather do, he wants to just do another full-on assault against Shredder's grandkid. He joins April in her resistance, and now they're going to go on a mission to destroy Baxter Stockman because he is controlling all the technology that the Shredder's grandkid uses. And so, take him out, weakens his defenses, and then they can go get the new head of the snake. We get another great battle scene out of this. It's just crazy to see Mikey fighting in this style, so serious. He's still talking to his brothers throughout this book in his own head. A little bit of time has passed because now April's daughter Casey is with him. She's got a mask on as well. Guess that's just a ninja tradition. And they're kicking ass. They're leading. They're leading the troops. They're waiting for April, who she built a new turtle tank that she's going to join the fight in. They do a lot of flashbacks in this book, and they flashback now after the Baxter Stockman fight, or excuse me, during the Baxter Stockman fight. They're flashing to Mikey training Casey, and it's just interesting to see him take that. And honestly, the way they draw him, it's scary. If I see this turtle, I mean, if I see any turtle in real life that's like this, sure, but you're used to seeing them in a certain friendly way. They draw him. I think he's a little bit frightening. They draw him bigger. They draw him jacked. It's just, I don't know. But anyway, back to the battle, which is not going well. Nothing's gone the way they planned. They thought it was going to be a cakewalk, and it was anything but. And eventually, towards the end, April shows up in the turtle tank. They also call the head of the robot Fugitoid. Now they're calling him Honeycutt. So again, I'm totally lost here. Steve, maybe throw an explanation bubble in here someplace, please. Thank you. They get the head of this other robot, Honeycutt, to where he has to go. They stick a jumper cable in him to reactivate. He has a Gandalf moment, screams, "You shall not pass," and destroys Stockman. And yay, victory, but also naturally, a whole ton of other issues to go. They lost some people along the way. It's not over yet. But it is over soon because this more or less takes us into issue number 5 of 5, and we're back at the lair. Mikey is sitting thinking. He's having an argument with the ghosts of his brothers. He is getting pissed off with them. The ghost of Leo is telling him he should have pressed the advantage they had after the attack and saying he lost it. The ghost of Donnie is saying that it's just too heavy a burden to bear being the last survivor. And the ghost of Raphael is, of course, poking at him saying that, oh, that's it. You're too weak because you're having second thoughts because you're the last survivor and you don't want to die type of stuff. Mikey loses it, tells them all to go to hell, and that's what they do. Not necessarily go to hell, but they stop talking to him. Also, Mikey gets pissed off and I guess is ready himself now to finally end it. He writes one last note in the book that was Splinters that he inherited that he's been using to train April's daughter Casey, and he heads out of the lair, all armored up and saying, "That's it. The time's now. I'm going to end this thing." And meanwhile, in the aftermath of the attack on Stockman that crippled the Foot's tech, naturally there's a whole ton of looters. The Shredder's grandson is losing his mind that all this is going on. He demands that his armor be brought to him because he's going to take matters into his own hands and find and kill the mutant. I don't think he knows or cares that it's Michelangelo. Casey's back. She confronts her mother finally about her being her extra abilities. Why didn't you tell me? I'm a mutant, stuff like that. She's also pissed off because Mikey's gone and April didn't stop him and April didn't tell her. So that part gets a little bit tiring just because, granted, it's the first time we're seeing it from them, but we've seen the final hours where, family members are going to fight and then go off and who knows what's going to happen before. So not really treading new ground here with this little conflict between April and Casey. We cut back. We're already inside the tower. Mikey's on a mission. They show you the bodies, like dozens of bodies that he's just cut down on his way to get to this to the new Shredder. I'm just going to call him because I can't pronounce his name. We get a couple more big bad robot types for Mikey to cut through, and then we get the final battle with Shredder 2.0. And unfortunately, doesn't really quite go our guy's way. He has on this armor that's kind of like the T-1000 armor in a sense. It's liquid metal, it seems to be like, covering his body. So any damage Mikey does, the metal either takes the blow or it protects whatever area of the body that he's actually managed to get to. While this huge fight is going on, the underground is flooding. And April, of course, is trying to fix some pumps that she's neglected all these years. People just have to keep up the day-to-day maintenance, even in the end of the times. That's the moral of that story. She's off trying to fix these drainage pumps. Casey is trying to find Michelangelo the entire time. But then she gets confronted with the fact that her mom was trying to fix the pumps. So she, of course, says, all right, Sensei's on his own, and she goes off to help her mom. Mikey and Shredder 2.0 are going at it. They're, Shredder's definitely getting his licks in on Mikey and vice versa. He finally thinks he's got the upper hand, Michelangelo, that is, and he's about to go in for the kill when he, of course, gets suckered and gets a pretty big blow dealt to him. And by the way, during this fight, nice little touch, at various points he's used the other remaining weapons of his brothers throughout the entire comic, but in this final fight, he's also using these weapons to give the most punishment he can at certain points. He stabs him through the hand with one of Raph's sais, tries to stab him in the face with part of Donatello's bow staff. It's great. It's just so entertaining, and just, if they ever did adapt this into an animated movie, I hope they don't dumb it down for kids at all. They have to keep it. This is probably an R-rated movie if they really want to do it right. Hard PG-13 maybe could be acceptable, but definitely not PG. I feel like we may have mentioned this on the live at one point. Casey finally finds her mother, and they're able to get the pumps going again. At this point, while this is happening, after Mikey gets dealt another pretty critical hit, takes the fight into the sewer, try to regroup, and at this point, he's stripping out of his armor, and it's just him versus Shredder 2.0. And we finally see Mikey break out the nunchucks because this is the end, and this is time for him to go, I guess, back to his roots and stick with what he knows. They kind of end the fight after they get sucked out of the drainage tunnel. It's a little bit Dark Knight Returns in my head because they're in a mud pit fighting. Through Mikey's internal dialogue, you realize that he's not making out of this alive because of the damage he's sustained through this fight. And honestly, I'm looking at it right now. I don't see how it happens. Like, you don't see Mikey slip one last ninja trick into his hand and use it to overload the suit that the Shredder is wearing. But maybe, I mean, you do see actually, you see the Shredder clutching his own chest. So I don't know if maybe he activated his own self-destruct. But in any case, they're in the mud pit. They're duking it out. All of a sudden, you see like an electric buzz building up around him. There's lightning shooting out from the armor. There's an explosion, and Shredder 2.0 is dead. Mikey is dragging himself to shore, so maybe he actually is going to get out of this. Miraculously, Casey appears, and shortly followed by April. And unfortunately, this is it. Mikey dies avenging his family. He gives his student the book that his father had noted in, and the book that he's been learning on all these years to become this insanely skilled ninja that he is. And he's made one alteration to an alteration he actually made earlier in the story. At the end of the book, you see that Mikey scribbled on a page, "No peace," N-O peace. He's altered it now for his student, who he sees as family because of the mutagen, but also just because it's April and April was family to him. He's changed it to "No peace," K-N-O-W, peace, telling his student, enjoy life too. And then with that, Mikey sadly passes, and we get to see, which we've seen earlier in the book, we see Mikey in his afterlife. He's with his brothers again. He's with his father and Casey. Everybody's young and strong, and they're on a rooftop. They end on a rooftop in New York, and they're all together and happy, and that is the last Ronin. So, again, please, thank you for bearing with me this whole time. Pick up this book. It is so good. I can't do it justice. The art is great. The way they draw everything, the way seeing Mikey, his attitude, the dialogue, it's nice to see. It's the characters like. I don't have a problem saying this could be the continuation of the '80s cartoon because they've grown up. Things have changed. Okay, it's not a bad thing to have an adult version of something that you enjoyed as a child. It doesn't make either one any less valid. It's just something new and different. Like I said at the beginning of this, on IDW's page, I found out that they're doing the prequel series, which I'm assuming is just going to elaborate on some of the flashback sequences from this, where Mikey's out there uh, living his life in between the fall of the Turtles and the start of the Last Ronin. I'm assuming we're going to see him training up for the final mission that we come in on at the start of the book. But really, we'll have to look and see. And I didn't know this was coming out. I thought this was just going to be a one and done, which honestly, kind of like with the Dark Knight, maybe it should be a one and done because it has one of the creators is back for the prequel series. That doesn't guarantee anything because Frank Miller wrote Dark Knight Strikes Again and Dark Knight 3, The Master Race. I think there's only three of them. I hope there's only three of them. But he should have stopped with Dark Knight Returns. Maybe, I hope not, since this is my first introduction to the world of Turtle comics. Hopefully they prove me wrong. Hopefully it's a good addition to this story, doesn't take anything away from it, doesn't retread too much, which, again, they've given you some flashbacks in The Last Ronin about what he did. So yeah, they'll expand on it, but hopefully it's more than just a cash grab. So we'll have to wait and see on that one. But what we don't have to wait and see about is The Last Ronin. I would give it a 5 out of 5 stars. Definitely recommend you all pick it up. Either I have the hardcover in front of me, or I'm sure you can get it on your tablet. And you know what? Speaking of tablets and phones, while you're on there, why don't you check out one of the links in the description of this video? Nerd affiliated, you can go get some sweet, sweet merch to let all your friends know where you get all your latest nerdy content. And be sure to keep an eye out. Thursdays, 8:15-ish in the PM Eastern Time, we have Hey Archer Live. The technical difficulties are part of the charm. Come for the difficulties, stay for the chat, and for the games of either, and for all the great guests that Steve's been having on lately, myself not included. Definitely has been having a whole ton of great guys on there lately, and it's only getting better. Brand new year, 2023. We have a whole lot of stuff coming down the pipe. We have a whole lot of content to consume with you guys and talk about with you guys coming out soon. Yeah, but I am Anthony, the Rambling Nerd. Find me on Instagram with that name. Let me know what you thought about my review. Let me know what you thought about The Last Ronin. And yeah, talk to you guys in the next video. Steve, play me out, please.